My name is Elena, I'm 34 years old, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person who destroys someone's property out of spite. But then again, I never thought my own brother would try to steal our family's legacy right out from under me. The lake house has been in our family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with his own hands in the 1960s, a modest 2-bedroom cabin nestled on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. It wasn't fancy, just weathered cedar siding, a stone fireplace that always smelled faintly of pine smoke, and a dock that creaked when you walked to the end of it. But it was ours. Every summer of my childhood was spent there, catching fireflies in mason jars, learning to swim in water so cold it made your teeth chatter, and falling asleep to the sound of loons calling across the water. When my parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, they left the cabin to both my older brother, Derek, and me. Equal shares. 50-50. That was the plan. We'd continue the family tradition, share the space, and eventually pass it down to our own children. But Derek had other ideas. My brother is 38, works in commercial real estate in Boston, and has the kind of personality that makes you exhausted just being in the same room with him. Everything is a negotiation. Everything has an angle. He's the type who'll shake your hand while already calculating how to profit from the conversation. He married a woman named Simone, a corporate attorney at one of those massive downtown firms where they bill clients $800 an hour. Together, they're the kind of power couple who vacation in the Maldives and somehow make even their Christmas cards feel like a competition. Derek and I were close growing up. Not best friends, but solid siblings who had each other's backs. We built forts in the woods behind the cabin, capsized canoes together, and once got grounded for an entire summer after we borrowed Dad's boat without asking and ran it aground on a sandbar. When our parents died, we grieved together. We held each other at the funeral. We promised we'd honor their memory by keeping the family together. That lasted about 18 months. After the funeral, Derek and I agreed to split the cabin's expenses and usage. We'd alternate holidays, coordinate summer weeks, and communicate about any major repairs. For the first year, it worked fine. I'd go up for long weekends, bring books, and spend quiet evenings on the porch. Derek would come up with Simone for their unplugged retreats, though I noticed they spent most of their time on conference calls and answering emails. I didn't complain. It was his space too. But then things started to shift. It began 2 years ago in early spring. I drove up to open the cabin for the season, draining the pipes, checking for winter damage, all the usual tasks. When I arrived, I found Derek's brand new boat parked in the detached boathouse that sat next to the property. And I mean brand new. A Malibu wake setter, gleaming white and chrome, with custom leather seats and a sound system that probably cost more than my annual salary as a nurse. The price tag for a boat like that? Somewhere around $90,000. I called Derek immediately. Hey, I didn't know you bought a boat. It's gorgeous, but you should have told me you were storing it here. It's not here, he said casually. It's at the lake house. Where else would I keep it? Derek, the boathouse is part of the shared property. You can't just. Relax, Elena. It's not a big deal. I'll use it when I'm there. You can use it when you're there. Think of it as an upgrade to the property. Something in his tone, that dismissive, already moved on quality, made my jaw tighten. But I let it go. It wasn't worth the fight. Except it didn't stop there. Over the next few months, Derek started treating the cabin like his personal asset. He'd show up without warning, sometimes bringing clients from work for casual meetings that turned into full-day events. I'd arrive for a planned weekend only to find business cards scattered on the kitchen table and the trash full of catered lunch containers. He replaced the old dock, which Dad had built, with a larger, more expensive one, and sent me a bill for half the cost without asking if I wanted it done. It needed updating, he said when I confronted him. The old one was a liability. What if someone got hurt? Someone? You mean your clients? He didn't even deny it. The cabin's an asset, Elena. We should be maximizing its value. That word, asset, made my skin crawl. This wasn't an investment property. It was our family's home. Then came the conversation that changed everything. It was late October, just before the lake community required all boats to be removed from the water for winter. I drove up to close the cabin for the season and found Derek on the dock with a clipboard and a man in a suit. What's going on? I asked, walking down to meet them. Derek turned, his expression too neutral to be genuine. Oh, hey Elena. This is Richard. He's a real estate appraiser. I'm getting the property assessed. My stomach dropped. Why? Because Simone and I have been talking, and we think it makes sense to sell. The market up here is insane right now. Lakefront properties are going for double what they were worth 5 years ago. We could split the money and both walk away with a serious chunk of change. I stared at him, my brain struggling to catch up. Sell? Derek, this is our family's cabin. Mom and Dad wanted us to keep it. Mom and Dad are gone, Elena. His voice was flat, businesslike. And real estate doesn't care about sentiment. This place is worth at least $850,000 right now. That's over $400,000 each after fees. You could buy something smaller, more practical. Or invest it. Build wealth. Richard, the appraiser, shifted uncomfortably and muttered something about needing to measure the lot. I grabbed Derek's arm. We agreed to share this place. You can't just decide to sell without talking to me first. I am talking to you. Right now. He pulled his arm free, his expression hardening. Look, I'm trying to be fair here. We both own 50%. If you don't want to sell, fine, buy me out. But I'm not going to keep pouring money into this place when I could be building equity somewhere else. Buy you out? Derek, I'm a nurse. I don't have $400,000 lying around. He shrugged. Then we sell. It's simple math. That night, I sat alone in the cabin, staring at the stone fireplace and feeling something ugly twist in my chest. The walls were covered in memories, initials carved into the window frame, a faded photo of all four of us on the dock, Mom's recipe for blueberry pie still taped inside a cupboard. This wasn't math. This was erasure. And Derek was holding the calculator. I called a lawyer the next morning. A family friend who'd helped with my parents' estate explained the situation bluntly. Because Derek and I were equal owners, either of us could force a sale through the courts if we couldn't agree. My only options were to buy him out, which I couldn't afford, or to fight it in court, which would cost thousands and likely end the same way. Unless, the lawyer said carefully, you can prove he's been violating the terms of shared ownership. Misusing the property for profit, for example. But that's hard to prove unless you have documentation. Misusing the property. The words echoed in my head. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention. Real attention. I drove up to the cabin unannounced on a Saturday in mid-November and found Derek hosting what could only be described as a corporate retreat. A dozen people from his real estate firm were there, using the cabin for team-building exercises. There were rented tables and chairs on the lawn, a catering van in the driveway, and even a photographer taking promotional shots. Elena. Derek greeted me like I was an uninvited guest. What are you doing here? I own this place too, remember? Right, yeah. We're just wrapping up a strategy session. We'll be cleared out by tomorrow. I took photos. Lots of them. The rented equipment, the promotional materials, and the business logo printed on coffee cups. Derek was using our family cabin as a corporate venue, without asking, without compensating me, and definitely without paying taxes on the commercial use. It still wasn't enough to stop a sale. But it was ammunition. Then I got the call that made everything crystal clear. Mrs. Kowalski, an elderly neighbor who'd known my parents for decades, phoned me in early December. Elena, dear, I thought you should know your brother brought someone by last week. A developer. They were talking about tearing down the cabin and building condos. Luxury units, they said. Right on your family's land. My hands went numb. Condos. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I couldn't believe it either. I thanked her and hung up, my heart hammering. Derek wasn't just selling the cabin. He was selling it to someone who planned to bulldoze it and turn our family's legacy into investment properties. That was the moment I decided, if Derek wanted to treat this like a business transaction, I'd show him exactly what happens when you screw over the wrong person. The plan came to me during the coldest week of December. Temperatures were plunging below zero, the lake was freezing over, and the local news kept warning about burst pipes and dangerous wind chills. And Derek's $90,000 boat was still sitting in the boathouse. He was supposed to have pulled it out weeks ago, but he'd been too busy trying to sell the cabin to bother. The boat was winterized, drained, covered with a tarp, but still sitting on the motorized lift inside the boathouse. I drove up to the cabin on a Thursday night when I knew Derek and Simone were in Boston for some legal conference. The lake was deserted, the nearest occupied house at least a quarter mile away. I parked my car in the garage, grabbed the industrial-strength garden hose from the shed, and got to work. The boathouse wasn't heated, but it was enclosed, a wooden structure built partially over the water, with a motorized lift to raise and lower boats. I connected the hose to the outdoor spigot, which was insulated and still functional, and dragged it inside. Then I turned on the water. I sprayed down the boat from every angle. The tarp, the hull, the chrome railings, the lift mechanism. Water pooled on the wooden floor and seeped through the gaps in the boards, mixing with the icy lake water below. I kept the hose running for 30 minutes, moving systematically, making sure every surface was soaked. Then I turned off the water, coiled the hose, hid it in my car, and drove home. By the next morning, the boathouse was a frozen fortress. The water I'd sprayed had frozen into a solid coating of ice, cementing the tarp to the boat's hull. The lift mechanism was locked in place, frozen solid. The pooled water on the floor had turned into a sheet of ice nearly 3 inches thick. And, because the boathouse sat partially over the lake, the water below had frozen upward, creating an ice wall that sealed the structure shut from underneath. Derek's precious boat was trapped in a tomb of ice. I took photos, uploaded them to a secure cloud account, and deleted them from my phone. Then I waited. Derek called me 3 days later, and I've never heard a grown man sound so unhinged. "Someone sabotaged my boat," he screamed. "The whole goddamn boathouse is frozen solid. The boat, the lift, everything." I kept my voice calm. "What? That's awful. What happened?" "I don't know. But it's not natural. Someone did this on purpose." "Derek, it's been below zero for a week. Maybe the winterization didn't work properly. I had professionals do it." "This isn't Elena. Do you know anything about this?" I let the silence stretch just long enough. Why would I know anything? I've been working double shifts all week. Maybe check with the neighbors. Could have been vandals. He hung up without saying goodbye. Over the next 2 weeks, I heard through Mrs. Kowalski that Derek had hired a contractor to free the boat. They brought industrial heat lamps, blowtorches, and even a small crane. But the ice was too thick, and every time they melted one section, the sub-zero temperatures refroze it overnight. The contractor finally told Derek he'd have to wait until spring. By then, the damage was catastrophic. The weight of the ice had cracked the fiberglass hull in 3 places. The tarp had torn, exposing the custom leather seats to moisture, which froze and split the seams. The sound system was destroyed. The engine's internal components had suffered frost damage and would need complete replacement. The repair estimate came back at $47,000. And Derek's insurance company denied the claim, citing improper winterization and negligent storage. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. Because 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter from Derek's attorney. He was suing me for destruction of property, demanding $47,000 in damages, plus legal fees. The letter accused me of intentional sabotage in retaliation for the planned sale of jointly owned property. I called my lawyer immediately. "Do they have proof?" he asked. "None." I was careful. "Then this is a bluff. He's hoping you'll panic and settle. Don't respond directly. Let me handle it." Derek's case fell apart quickly. He had no evidence, no witnesses, no security footage, no proof I'd been near the cabin that night. His lawyer tried to subpoena my work schedule, but it showed I'd been clocked in at the hospital. I'd asked a friend to cover a shift swap, creating a paper trail. Meanwhile, I filed a counterclaim, accusing Derek of commercially exploiting shared property without consent or compensation. I had photos, witness testimony from neighbors, and even catering receipts I'd found in the trash during one of my visits. The judge was not impressed with Derek. "Mr. Novak," he said during the hearing, "you've used jointly owned property for corporate events without your co-owner's knowledge or consent. You failed to properly maintain expensive equipment stored on shared premises. And now you're demanding your sister pay for damage caused by your own negligence. This court finds no credible evidence of sabotage." Derek's lawsuit was dismissed. But the real twist came 4 months later. Desperate for cash after the boat disaster and mounting legal bills, Derek took out a high-interest loan using his 50% stake in the cabin as collateral. He was convinced he could flip the sale quickly and pay it off. Except the market shifted. Interest rates spiked. Buyers pulled back. The cabin sat on the market for 6 months with no offers. Derek defaulted on the loan. The bank seized his share and put it up for auction to recover their losses. And, because I had the right of first refusal as the co-owner, I got the first bid. I bought Derek's 50% stake for $280,000, barely half what he thought it was worth. The cabin is mine now. Completely. Legally. Mine. I spent last summer repainting, replacing the things Derek had changed, and restoring the cabin to how it looked when our parents were alive. I hung Mom's quilts back up. I framed Dad's favorite photo of the lake at sunset. I even rebuilt the old dock, the one Derek had replaced, using the original blueprints Dad had sketched on graph paper. Derek and Simone divorced last year. Apparently, losing $500,000 in bad investments and legal fees put a strain on their power couple dynamic. He moved out of Boston, took a job managing strip mall properties in Connecticut, and blocked me on every platform. We haven't spoken since the judge dismissed his case. Now I'm teaching my niece, my female cousin's daughter, how to skip stones and catch fireflies and fall asleep to the sound of loons in the water. The cabin will stay in the family. Just like it was always meant to. As for Derek's boat, it sat frozen in that boathouse all winter, slowly deteriorating into expensive scrap metal. By the time spring came and the ice finally melted, the hull was beyond repair. He sold it for parts and got maybe $8,000. A $90,000 toy reduced to junk. Sometimes revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a garden hose, a freezing night, and the patience to let physics do the rest. And sometimes, when someone tries to take everything from you, the sweetest revenge is making sure they lose it all instead. I sleep well at night. The lake is quiet. The cabin is warm. And Derek's boat is gone. Just like his claim to our family's legacy.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share it with someone who loves a good twist. And make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.